What if I told you Branded is one of the best decks into Blue Eyes? So with the new Blue Eyes structure deck coming out, it's going to be one of the best decks. Of course, Malice and ryzeal will still be there, but Branded has a silver bullet against Blue Eyes, and for that reason, I think Branded is going to be very well positioned into this meta. I'm going to show you guys the best build that you can be on right now to win all your matchups in the meta, on top of showing off some combos and side patterns. If you guys want to see an extended guide, though, I can go really in depth with this deck. Make sure to get this video to 200 likes. Branded also just topped YCS Birmingham, so of course this deck is going to be on some people's radar now because of the fact that it took a top 32 spot with a build that we have yet to get the list. However, from the feature match, it looked like a 50 card build. So it was about like probably a standard build with some text. He also ran Xyz Encore on top of Lightning Storm, so which I found pretty interesting overall because it seemed like a pretty standard Branded build, and for that reason, I feel like a lot of people haven't been really giving Branded the chance it deserves in this type of meta. I definitely think it can contend. I think that Branded's biggest issue, like I've been preaching, has been malice, essentially. So as long as you're running options in your main deck that actually help you with your game ones against malice, so you don't just like auto lose if you lose the die roll, it works out pretty well. And I think we saw Basilis on Molcharmi Fulos in the main. I spotted out in the stream. I have the stream VOD down below if you want to check it out. But, you know, also I think that's going to be a very important point that we're going to go over at one point. Very standard lineup for the Branded cards, though. 3 Albaz, 3 Aluber, 2 Quem. This is a 60 card build, though, so we are maxing out. I do want the 2 Quem. 2 Quem is amazing for the grind game. There's a lot of grind games right now because of the fact that, you know, there's a lot of hand traps and the decks are, at the end of the day, kind of low ceiling at the end of the day, even with the ryzeal decks and malice. You know, a lot of these decks are going to be able to grind, so you need options to grind, so having the 2 Quem lets you do that. Also the 3 Cartesia, since it's a 60 card build, it just lets me see a starter at the end of the day, so that's just kind of why she's there. And then we have 1 Springans Kitt. And if we're talking about normal summons, I guess I do also have the Keeper of Dragon Magic. So these are kind of like all the starters that I have in the deck that you are going to be summoning. Obviously, a lot of them you want to end up special summoning or using for discard fodder. But in a 60 card build, the ratios just work out where if I have this Keeper basically in my deck, I'm never going to really brick. The chances of me bricking is so much more lower if I just am not running, or if I'm running this card than not. So that's what we're doing at the end of the day. This card's actually very interesting and Branded. I've carried it over from Master Duel, but it's one of those cards that actually helps you out. It's a Dark Dragon, so it's like the best typing. Honestly, anything that's Dark Dragon, you should already kind of consider in Branded. You just have to go from there, and the thing is, it searches out Branded Fusion. Yes, you have to discard a card. However, that is fine at the end of the day when you're running things like 3 Saronir, and I've also been debating on running 2 Retribution or multiple Tragedy. Currently, we are not, but we're going to talk about that when we get to those, because I really do want to have a big conversation about Branded at this format, what you guys should be doing. And you know, I know not a lot of people love the 60 card build, especially now with Branded Fusion at 1, but I think at the end of the day, when you're looking at the boards that you need to be able to win against, Malice, you are required to have a lot of gas if you want to actually go second and break the Malice board, because it's pretty impossible to break at the end of the day. You need to be on 60 card. And also, seeing the Molcharmi is a very good thing. Like I said, we're going to get to that. So I think, you know, having the side options as well to just try to blow out Malice and at least make it so your games are better against them. So at the end of the day, I think the Keeper is worth it. It's also a High Spirits bridge. And then, of course, we're still running Kitt. I think I've seen some builds not run Kitt. I'm just like, what are we doing here? It's just like your best thing if you want to insulate your lines from like Ash Blossom. If I ever have like a Aluber Albaz in hand, I'll always go search for Branded and High Spirits, of course, so I can actually, you know, pitch the Albaz, and then I can just go into my extra deck and then pitch an Albion. So even if, you know, and then I'll search out the Kitt, and then Kitt can get out the Branded Fusion. You know, that's something that at the end of the day is a way better line than just going, normal summon Aluber, search Branded Fusion, and then use the Branded Fusion and pitch the Albaz, because if they have the Ash Blossom, obviously you're just cooked at that point, right? And then also the Albion plus Albaz in that occasion's crazy, right? Because then you get Branded in red, and that's a guaranteed Mirror Jade. And you can make a board out of Mirror Jade. That's why we play Brandon. That's why I think it's actually very good into this format, because it's a very simplified board state kind of format, because everyone's running like 20 hand traps, and everyone's one card starter doesn't get them like a bunch of omni negates. They're all interactions, and Branded can deal with removal very easily because you have things like Branded Opening and like floating effects and graveyard effects. So I think it's just the malice issue, but we'll get into that more. So then we have one Tragedy and then one Tri-Brigade Mercourier. I'll also have the deck list down below, because I realize a lot of my cards are foreign, so a lot of people, who are new to Branded, of course, just don't realize what these cards are. So I also try to at least speak it out, the full name, when we're going to them. But yeah, Tri-Brigade Mercourier is, your Effect Veiler. It's a great card. You have to run it. I was actually running multiples of both of these cards plus Allure of Darkness, but I tended to just opt for the High Spirits, because at the end of the day, you actually want to Allure is just not that good in Branded compared to High Spirits, in my opinion. I think Allure is really gambly, and whereas High Spirits, like, pretend this card is basically interchangeable with Allure and Branded. You cannot run both, in my opinion, because if you run both, you are just like way too starved for darks. And then at the end of the day, so why is this better than Allure? Because Allure, you can draw a hand of Quem and Allure, and that will happen a lot, or like Cartesia and Allure and no other darks. And that's terrible. Like, right? Like half your engine, or like a third of your engine, like a good third of your engine, is just like light monsters. So like when you're running a 60 card build, especially, like maybe a 40 card build, I think Allure is fine because it's a lot more compressed. But in a 60 card build, you have to kind of search out your things. If you're searching out a dark to banish off of Allure Darkness, that's just like really neg, in my opinion, and really plays into Droll. So this is just like way better, because like if at least if I have like Cartesia and or Quem, I can just like basically still play the game. I can get to Kitt and step something into graveyard like a Grand Quignall, which is not bad because we do run some actually pretty spicy target. And then of course so we're running one of each. And then also the problem with running Allure is that you have to up these guys, and they're just bricks. I think Tragedy is fine because it's like a second Retribution at the end of the day, and I feel like this actually in theory might be better than running a second Retribution in Branded, but because the fact it's just engine and it still acts as it, and you don't really need the quick play effect of Retribution at the end of the day. So but the thing is, the effects are exclusive, so it is kind of what it is. So yeah, that's kind of my theory on why we're running 3 High Spirit instead of Allure of Darkness, and why we're running the ratios of that. I really did want to run Allure. I think you need to run some sort of draw power in 60 card, but I think this kind of build, we're running things like Nadir, inspired by Basilis, because Basilis was on main deck Nadir, and I think like that actually I think I was wrong on Nadir for this format when I was talking about it. I mean, at least like the Maximus is debatable, but at the end of the day, not a lot of people are going to be. I thought Mitsurugi was going to be the best deck, and like it still is. Like it's arguably the best deck. Like the guy at NA, like shout out to him, arguably should have won that finals if it was played differently, right? So like I do think, but not a lot of people are going to be like all hyped about it anymore, in my opinion. So it's not going to be everywhere. It's going to be somewhere. Like you saw at Birmingham, there were some Mitsurugi ryzeal players, and at the end of the day, that's fine. You can just like, I don't think you need the draw power as much as you just need ways to punch through, like running bangers, like being able to run things like Grasslook Screener, Nadir, a bunch of board breakers in the same package. Is just what you need at the end of the day. I think the High Spirits is just fine. But that is something I could consider in the future. Also, I'm not running Pod Desires, so yeah, we'll talk about that. So like, obviously Pod Desires is not really that great anymore with one branded fusion, because if you banish the one branded fusion, you can't just like, you used to be able to just go Pod Desires first action and branded, and it was like the best card in your deck because you would never banish all 3 branded fusion or Albaz, and then you just like play the game and win. But you can't, it's just a card that you have to like actually like get rid of interruptions on your opponent's side of the field before you actually go into it, and it sucks. So for that reason, we are on it. So if you're playing 60, it's like, why are you playing 60? Because of grass, and then also it gives you still a lot more options at the end of the day. And then 3 Albion. And then also we aren't trying to exactly play into Droll, so like we're running the 3 Albion, 3 Saronir. It's also great for obviously grass mills, but also at the, you know, these cards are just engine. They get you to branded fusion. 3 Saronir is just cracked right now with how much Fiendsmith is out there. Also Mitsurugi. It's incredible against any of those variants. It's also just fine against Malice if you banish a Splash Mage target that was already used its floating effect, right? And then 1 Magnamhut, 1 Lubellion. You just have to run these cards. A lot of people ask me sometimes, is this card cuttable? I don't think so, because it is the card I always like to send. I mean, obviously, like, you can run branded without it if you don't want to afford it, but like, or if you can't afford it, but at the end of the day, this should be on like your top of your list in terms of like expensive cards to buy in branded. And then this should be getting reprinted though, I believe pretty soon, but we'll see. Then 3 of these guys, you just have to at 60. This is like your draw power, so it helps you sift through your deck. And then yeah, you just have to also with grass. It's just a good card though in 60 because you're never like drawing Shrouded off of Shrouded. Like a lot of people run 3 Shrouded like 40 to 45 card builds, and I don't get that because then you're just like always drawing Shrouded off of Shrouded. It's like terrible. So the last couple cards, 1 Maximus, obviously, because we are running the Nadir Servants. And then 3 Fulos, obviously, like I mentioned before. I would love to be running like 9 Mulcharmies, I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, shout out to Dapper Despia, the guy who played the round 4 feature match at YCS Orlando. He was taking a going second build of branded, and then also Basilis, who just top 32'd, was also maining Fuelos. We could see from the feature match. So I do think this card is proving out. I've been saying since it's come out how good it is in branded. I think this card is incredible. It's definitely what you need to go second against like Mermail, against, you know, things like that. There's a reason why branded players run Maxi in the OCG. Obviously, I don't think this card's required, but I do think if you want to win against Malice more often, you know, increase your win rate against Malice, you have to main this. Also, for that reason, I've thought about maining Mulcharmy Meowless. We are siding it at the moment, so I do want to consider that because Meowless I think is arguably better than Fuelos right now, honestly, because going first and going second, it's a great top deck, and it's a great because you can go second against Fiendsmith and then like obviously use it on your turn, then you can draw 1 or 2 cards or force out the Lacrima basically early. And then also you can use it for going obviously against Mitsurugi ryzeal and then obviously Malice. So I think it's great against all the decks right now. So I think you could very easily main Meowls. I don't think purrely is mainable right now in this deck. You could, like I said, if you're going second, like my man Dapper, but I don't recommend the going second build personally. When Mermail's so good right now, you just can't take the random Mermail L's like we saw in the feature match. Once again, shout out to Dapper Despia. It's just the reality of the situation. Like it's Mermail is gonna be one of the better decks right now, and Malice is just like Mermail. If you go second, your curve is pretty bad. So of winning that game, so you really need to actually you need to main something like Fuelos at the end of the day. This is not a great top deck, but at the end of the day, if you see it, you basically win. If it doesn't get ashed, if it gets ashed, it takes out an ash, and that's fine with me in my opinion. I've heard some people say like I don't want to get ashed. Like shout out to Nightfall, love my brother to death, my Blazing Branded King to death. But I do think that his reasoning for like not running Maxi and Master Duel, I mean, because you want engine instead of it getting ash, but then like they're gonna have the ash for your branded fusion, right? So it's just like, if you're breaking their board. So I don't know. So at the end of the day, I just prefer to run that. So here for the branded spells and traps, we are gonna see 1 branded loss, 1 branded red, 1 branded fusion. Bring this back to 2 Konami. I promise I won't do anything too bad with it. You know, if Ostinato, you know, this is your branded propaganda hour. So, you know, Ostinato's at 3, you know, the new Dragon Tales cards get a new branded fusion, right? And then also Mitsurugi Ritual is just basically branded fusion. All these cards generate the same amount of, like, advantage branded fusion does. Brand fusion actually hard locks you, so this card should be back at 2 now that Gimmick Puppet is gone. You can ban Sanctifier, I'm fine with that at this point, even though I want the QCR Sanctifier really bad. Just errata Sanctifier, please. I love Sanctifier. And then, one branded in white. I mean, I don't even think they have to at the end of the day, because like Abaku is a card. I don't think you have to. I think Sanctifier can exist because Abaku can lock. So branded white. So brand white you need, I think, because it helps you grind. Once again, I'm not running two Brandon red. I'm choosing to run a white because I'm running a lot of Dark Dragons and then also the Chaos Star Source. So it makes this card a board breaker going second if you run Chaos Star Source Dragon. So let me get that card out. Basically, if you guys are unfamiliar, it came out in, it's a common out of the Supreme Darkness. But yeah, no, Chaos Star Source Dragon basically can pop 2 cards on the field when you fuse it off, and it just requires a dragon plus a light and dark dragon monster that is so basically all your monsters that you could use. So you can use Shrouded, Saronir, Albaz, and it makes Cartesia more of a board breaker as well. So this card's just super utility, I think, in my opinion. And then I kind of regret not running it more, but I do think it's very good into this format. It's very good into Malice and things like that, and just rogue matchups. And then 3 branded opening. Shout out to Master Duel for finally getting 3 of those. And then 1 branded retribution. Like I mentioned, I kind of do want to run 2 of these, but in a lot of testing, just opening this card is really terrible, and I'd rather have engine at the end of the day. So I'm just choosing to run 1, but it's nice for the grind game, so you just have to be really careful with only running 1. I'm not gonna lie, having the second one to send off a Shrouded would be pretty good, so that's something that you could consider. But I think at the end of the day, like I always have said, you have to consider the propensity of bricks that you run in branded when you're deck building it, or else you can very easily just have an unplayable deck if you run too many of those bricks. But you need the bricks to increase your ceiling in your deck's grind game, so it's always just like how you're going to shape your deck and like what you want it to do. It's branded as a toolbox, and you kind of shape it and take the certain tools that you want for the meta and, you know, do it like that. I know that's not the greatest analogy, but also it works like that. I also forgot to mention I am running the branded banishment, of course, so that I can get to the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. I think this is still our best turn 1 board in the game. Makes any like Aluber branded fusion into 3 negates plus a Mirror Jade plus a Mercourier or follow-up, and then if you have any other cards on top of that, it's crazy, right? So that's why I do think that Light and Darkness Dragon Lord is staple now. This is currently better on board than the Gimmick Puppet Lock or whatever, the Idol Lock, so definitely run this. You need the banishment. I mean, you don't need it because you make this off of Cartesia, but this just makes it a 1 card, a really clean 1 card combo, and then I think you can use the other 4 cards to play through hand traps or just like insulate your board. So that's why I really like it. And most decks just can't even play through the board that the 1 card combo makes. Like Malice can't, ryzeal might because of the aggregator, but you know it happens. And then, like I mentioned before, just cards to play through hand traps, the 3 Nadir Servant. It makes it so like 60 card, you have a 1 card banger basically that you can draw at all times. So I do love having the Nadir Servant. And then you can search out the Maximus, obviously, and then get out to sending you know, the Albion and the Titaniclad to the graveyard, which typically makes you go full combo. You can get whatever you want, like Mirror Jade looping or the Idol Lock if you side it in, or even use it. So I think it's very good. They go Ash on your branded fusion. This is just another way to play through it, and also it just also helps you establish more card advantage, and it's great in a grind game. It's good top deck. I really like it. Also, you can play through Droll with it, because a lot of people don't know, but you can add from your graveyard. So remember that if you want to play through Droll, like put an Albaz or like a Quem in the graveyard and then go Nadir, you can play through Droll. Fun fact. I think Maximus is a little dicey right now with Mitsurugi, but like obviously you side this out if you're going against Mitsurugi. The nice thing about Brand is that you have a ton of targets for Nadir, unlike every other Nadir deck. And then 3 fusion deployments. This card's very good. Obviously, you gotta run it. A lot of people I still don't see opening this card, but this is like kind of like branded 101. You always start with Cartesia. If you have a way to Cartesia before you go into Aluber, you always do that. So this helps you do that. And obviously you get locked, but we don't have Virtuous, so it doesn't matter. 1 grass looks greener. This card is crazy. You win the game if you see this. And most decks right now are on 40 cards, so that's why I think this card's crazy right now too. There's like no 60 card piles going around, so you're always just like getting like 20 cards off of this, basically 15 to 25 cards. And if this resolves, you win the game. Just straight up, it always gets you to branded fusion plus a lot of other cards like Cartesia, or even like other branded spells or traps. And then you can also run things like Tearlaman's Shiren, which I did take out from the final build. I was running that, but at the end of the day, you could run it too if you run things like more Tragedy, in my opinion. And then also you can like search it off a triple tactics thrust going second. So that's why I do love running the grass in 60. I think this is mandatory in 60. And one of the pluses of running 60. So just like thrust going second is just another copy of grass. And honestly, between me and you, I'm always going for grass if I'm going second and I can mill like 25 cards. Oh yeah, for sure. Even over like a board breaker or something. But speaking of board breakers, we're running 3 triple tactics talents as well. I think this card's crazy right now, so like there's so many hand traps, whether it's like Mulcharmy, people waiting for the main phase on that, or just like Ash Blossom and Valor. So I think like having this, it's always gonna generate you a draw 2, and this is our card. This is our draw advantage in our deck. This is always gonna be live, so we're always, as long as I don't brick, like this will just generate a draw 2, which helps me get through the 60 cards, and then also I could talents take to like help OTK. Also, just the look at hand effect is just broken if I have other cards to play with. This card, if talents resolves, you basically win the game, I think, right now. So that's why we're running at 3. Like, it makes a lot of non-games. I think we should always increase our non-game factor. That's why we ran Gimmick Puppet, because it made a lot of non-games, right? And then also for our last board breakers, 3 Super Poly. Yeah, I might have moved one of my Super Polys at YCS Orlando. We're going to have to get another one. But yeah, no, running 3 Super Poly, I do think this card is very much definitely necessary in the deck right now, because you can go into broken cards such as Despian Quertus, or even more importantly, Despian Proskinion. So Proskinion needs 1 Despia monster, so a lot of the time what you can just do is when your opponent has like a detonator plus a ryzeal a Mitsurugi monster, and or like basically the ritual monsters, and then if you go normal summon Aluber and they go like imperm or something, you can just chain Super Poly and suck up the board, or you could just which is really nice. Also with the Quem, this works as well, because Quem is always considered as a Despia monster, which people always forget about. This is my favorite fact to teach people when we're going against it. So I think that Super Poly kind of just cracks the whole board with Proskinion. And then also I'm running Garura, obviously, because of the fact that I am running the Nadir Servant. So I think like having this is great against Malice. It helps you with your Malice matchup. It clears out the Cyburses. It gets rid of the takes like Whitebinder out of rotation, then also helps like get around certain things. I do think like going into Mirror Jade is also sometimes super important against most decks just with Super Poly, so I think it helps in those matchups. Also Quertus is really nice too, once again. It was either Super Poly or Droplet in the main deck, but I opted to just go for the Super Poly. Alright, so for the last couple cards, we have Foolish Burial, Gold Sark, called by the standard cards. We're playing 60. I wish we had 2 Gold Sark. I wish Malice didn't have 2 Gold Sark, but, I'd definitely use it for our deck because it's another 1-card starter. And then 1 Pot of Prosperity. So I'm running Pot of Prosperity because I need just more consistency at 60 cards, and at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of banishes that you can do. Essentially, it just depends on your matchup. Like, for instance, if you're going against Malice, you really don't need certain things. Like, you could probably take out, if it's game 1, you don't need Sanctifier, you don't need alba lenatus. Depends on if you're going first or second, but if you're going first, like, I don't know, it just depends. You probably don't need, like, one of these guys. And you can also just, like, find different things to do. I think you can do 1 Albion if you're looking for 6. And then you could just kind of keep this core. Also, like, Garura is a very easy banish, obviously. You just have to keep this core, in my opinion. Also, Proskinion, depending on the matchup, you could take out. So there's a lot of things you could take out for Pot Prosperity if you want to hit 6. I don't recommend 6 if you're going to be going against a grind game. If you have like no starters in hand, I wouldn't go for 6. I'd probably go for 3, but if you need to, you need to, because like you can obviously just really dig through your deck. So, that's why I'm running it. It also triggers Quem, fun fact. So I do want to say that there are some shenanigans, especially in a grind game when you just have like a Mirror Jade in graveyard. and you top it makes Prosperity like a really nasty top deck when you have like Quem in rotation. When we have double Quem, we're always probably gonna have Quem in rotation, so it makes Prosperity just like always just really disgusting in this deck. And there's not too much draw power outside of talents, and obviously talents you can do other things than just draw, which is really nice. So it just plays around. This thing's just like always live. I think it's really nuts and branded, and it's kind of like one of those things where I'm surprised more people aren't running it in branded right now, at least in 60 card, because it really does help you like have way better hands. With this card, like on bricks, I have a lot of hands where I'll just draw this plus like thrust, and then like fusion deployment, like no monsters, and then I just like fish for a tragedy or fish for like grass, and I'm just like off to the races. And that's the thing. This makes like seeing grass like way more crazy too, in my opinion. I wish this, kind of wish I ran this card more and back in the day, honestly. But grass honestly just came out. All right, let's do this. So what we're looking at is obviously one Sanctifier. I still like this for Evenly. I still like this for the grind game. And then also I do run an Ido in the side deck. One Mirror Jade. I wish I could run two. I could potentially make room for two, but I think you kind of have to make concessions in this format, especially since the alba lenatus is good again. One Renbrum. This card's just crazy on board, and then also it's because you can like, if you have Mercourier in rotation, you can just make this off of branded in white and really just go off to the races. Also, it's great to have this on top of a lad because you can negate a lad effect, a negate if you don't want to like it to negate a card you shout out to Nightfall for this line, and then you can get a bounce. It's really cute. Also in the graveyard, this is just one of your best interruptions. Like, I think there's a lot of the times where I'll have like this plus lad and mirror jade, and like that's just like 7 interruptions right there because you have the 3 lad negates, the mirror jade, and then Albaz is going to fuse off on one of your opponent's monsters, and then also whatever you make, like a Borreload, is going to have an interruption or a chaos star source, and then you're going to have the Mercourier. So very good. And that's all if you just have, that's literally all if you just have an Albaz in rotation on top of your standard 1-card combo is 7 interruptions. Kind of crazy, right? And then 1 Albion, or sorry, 2 Albion. I would never run 1 Albion. I think you just kind of have to. I've wanted to run 1 Albion. It's just like so tough too. So you have to run 2. I think it's amazing for the grind game. Once again, tons of grind games, even though you're looking to shut out the game pretty early because you can't grind as heavily as like something like a ryzeal, Mitsurugi, or like Malice. So I do think like you kind of have, I mean, you can, but like you really have to be running a ton of bricks to do that. So I think I'd rather just like try to keep my game short and sweet, but also still be able to grind when I need to till about turn 5 or 6 and be able to close it out at least by 3, or try to. And then 1 Lubellion. I do love Lubellion. And then 1 Titaniclad. It's just standard. And then I've been wanting to try 2 Lubellion, or sorry, 2 Titaniclad. This card's just incredible because I always love sending this off of Mirror Jade or, Grand Guignol or High Spirits, and then I want to have one on my opponent's turn to fuse off something with my Albaz in the graveyard, but it's fine. Or just for the crackback, it's just really good for the grind game as well. 1 alba lenatus. I do think alba lenatus is standard now. This is the card, this is the silver bullet versus blue eyes. This is how you are never going to lose a game against blue eyes if you main alba lenatus, because blue eyes is going to be making fields of, their new boss monster, which is basically an Omni negate. Also, they can do Crimson Dragon plays into Cosmic Quasar, and then they also have some removal. But if you have this in your deck, you can just here, let me show you guys the 1-card combo to break every blue eyes board. You guys ready for this? Leave a like, subscribe, and buy my masterclass right now. Sat Albaz. Okay. Ask your opponent for a response. No? Okay. Alba lenatus. You just contact fuse off the whole blue eyes board, and then you make an alba lenatus, and then you go for game. That's it. That's it. As a wise branded player once said, that's it. So this is why you should be running branded this format, is because of alba lenatus. Alba lenatus is crazy right now, honestly. So just be it makes one of the best decks in the format completely trivialized, and also you already have an incredible ryzeal matchup, in my opinion. I think ryzeal, you basically break their board every time. It's just having enough follow-up to follow through with that, and that's why we're running things like Nadir Servant. And then also 2 fusion duplication in the side deck and stuff like that. So it's just like incredible. It's just Malice is super tough, but that's why we're running things like Fulos and trying to curve that with the side deck. Then 1 Grand Guignol. I do love Grand Guignol. I wish I could run 2, but I have like no room because of alba lenatus. This card's so good, but you gotta be careful with only running one because obviously you don't like run the lock in the main deck, so I think it's just like fine to have one right now. But and then like post side, you're obviously running things like fusion duplication, and you don't need two going second, so I think that's fine. Even though it's nice for the grind, like I said. One Garura for the super poly, and then obviously Nadir, one Proskenion, and then one Borreload, one Chaos Star Source, one Borreload, or sorry, one Chaos, or oh my gosh, Guardian Chimera, and one Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. And also for the 16th card that you could be running is Despian Quartus. I just like don't want to forget this card. I'm just is something like I can't find room for it. I really want to run it because it's a great super poly target and it's great for OTKs. So that's what I'm gonna leave you guys. Find the cut for it. But I do think this list is really solid, and I've been testing with it. It's been really nice. Lots of theory been going into this. So yeah, we'll talk about these choices. Perskinion, like I said before, it's just amazing. And this card also breaks the ryzeal board because you go super poly on their like detonator, and then you steal the detonator. That's the thing. This thing can steal the detonator, and then you can go detonator effect. Because detonator on special summon can attach a monster from your own graveyard and then attach it to it, and then you get a pop, right? Or you can go Proskinion effect, steal the Nightmare Griffin, or Proskinion steal. I mean, I wouldn't do that against Malice, but you can go Proskinion steal the Murakamo versus the Mitsurugi player. So I think this card is incredible because it also gives you a body that does something, which is crazy, and breaks their board. So that's why it's super good. And then it's also an OTK machine and also a big body. So this card's just crazy right now. It's like the best Perskinion's ever been right now. If you're not running it, I think you're a little behind on that, and then you should be running it in branded. And then we have one Chaos Star Source. Like I explained this before, it makes a lot of your cards board breakers like Cartesia, so that's why I really like it. And then also one Guardian Chimera. I see a lot of people cutting this card. I would not agree with that. Like, imagine having Borreload Chimera, Chaos Star Source, and then you have Mirror Jade, right? Like, you have 4 main deck monsters that are just all about removal. And also, these 2 cards help you get into things like Light and Darkness Dragon Lord. That's why I also like Chaos Star Source, because it's a light level 8 dragon, so it helps you make Chaos, or this guy with Cartesia. And the Light and Darkness Dragon Lord is incredible. 3,400, 3 Omni Negates, the best end board piece in the whole game right now, and we can make it with our 1-card combo. A lot of people just don't know what to do with it. It's a mandatory, but obviously, and people are like, oh, I don't like the fact I can't use Mercourier with it. Okay, well, have a Cartesia on board, have a Droplet on board, or something to remove this when it's used up, right? Or your opponent's just going to run over it, and then you have your Mercourier alive, so it's not really an issue most of the time, in my opinion. And Borreload I've been seeing cut too, but I think you need it, especially against Tenpais, like the Fiendsmith variant. It's just so good when they go Sangan summoning and you chain Borreload. Like, that's like the most satisfying feeling in the game. I'll contend. So yeah. So for our going first sides, we have 1 Ido and then 2 fusion duplication. I feel like Ido, yeah, locking is like whatever, but at the end of the day, you have to do what you gotta do. I think a lot of decks do are pretty broken too. And this helps you have a really good Mulcharmy line because you can just make Sanctifier and have a way to send Ido like a Cartesian rotation or like Foolish Burial or something like that, and then you basically can put them on Better Have It, and that's a pretty good Mulcharmy line in my opinion, instead of giving them like 5 draws, making a Lad, and then maybe a Mirror Jade, and then also just losing to their card advantage. So I think that's just a way better Mulcharmy line. And then fusion duplication is just incredible. You always want to see it going second or going first. It's also not bad in a grind game, so against certain decks you could even decide going second. I don't highly recommend it, but it's just not bad. This card's just like full combo, and then if you're just able to see like any way to branded fusion through hand traps, it just helps you play through hand traps. So I think it's like standard. It's like your best going first side in branded, in my opinion. Then 3 Lancia. I'm not running Sanctum. I wish I could fit it. That would be like the 16th card, because we are running Thrust, so you could always consider Lancia in my opinion, or Sanctum, but 3 Lancia, you just want to see it. You have Fuelos, so it just increases your likelihood of winning against the against things like Crystron, but also more importantly Malice. And then also 3 Mulcharmy Purrely. No, these should be Meowls. I just haven't gotten them yet, so just pretend these are Mulcharmy Meowls, but I want Meowls for like Mitsurugi, Fiendsmith, and then also the Malice deck. Purrely only really covers the ryzeal deck, so That's why it should be Meowls in my opinion. But that's what these are there for. You just need to see these cards. So when you're running also Fulos and then all like Super Poly, tactics, you have actually a really high likelihood of still like breaking the board against Malice, especially when you're like having so much card advantage. So like definitely what you have to see to win those games 2 and 3 versus Malice, in my opinion, and not just auto lose. And then for the board breaking package, we do have a small one of 3 droplet and then 1 Dark Ruler No More, and then 1 evenly matched. I actually wish I could be basically running more board breakers. I actually have them right here. I wish I could be running 2 more Dark Ruler and then another evenly at the very least, but I just don't have the room. And also the side patterns don't quite work out that way, so that's why they're going to be there. And then also you can just obviously thrust these out, so that's why they're one-ofs. Also, you can just draw them. I don't want to see too many board breakers, obviously, too, so I think we have enough between all like the Mulcharmies and things like that, so we'll draw into them. And then 3 droplet. I think droplet's just broken. It's very good against Malice to negate the white binder, so it's just kind of what you want to see. And then also just get into the like the ryzeal boards and stuff like that. If you go like normal summon Aluber, they go imperm, you chain droplet. It's just broken as always. Then 1 masquerade for time. It's also very good. I think I'll basically side out anything in my extra deck that I don't need in that matchup. Like if alba lenatus is not relevant because there's no dragons, I just like side in masquerade. And then we could talk about the side patterns super quickly because I know I kind of went overboard. But basically you want to side out going second Nadir plus Maximus because those are just like 4 really good side outs, 1 banishment you don't want to see. Called by is also a potential side out in my opinion, going second. You just don't need it going second. And then also 1 keeper is not bad to side out. I'd also say 2 high spirits, if not 3 plus a fusion duplication is pretty good for siding out. And then potentially 1 Quem also. So this gives you basically just like 12 consistent sides that you could use. So like obviously you could side in your board breaking package and these guys, and then also, you know, I think Mulcharmy Meowls basically goes in for like every matchup, and then just depending on what else if you need the Lancia that fits the rest of the cards. And then going first sides, if you want to fit in the fusion duplication plus the Ido, you want to side out just probably the you just side out the Mulcharmies. It's a clean 3 sides. So yeah, I actually thought out, but yeah. Go cook some blue eyes, go resolve some alba lenatuses. I'm going to show off some combos on the next video for this build, so make sure to get this video to 200 likes. I'd like to just talk about Brandon more, but this video is getting to be a bit long, so we're also going to do a follow-up yapping about Brandon video here soon. So I just wanted to get this out there and talk more theory on Brandon. I really do think Brandon's well-positioned this format as long as you have the correct tech options for the format. I did see Basilis also run Xyz Encore in the top 32 Birmingham list, so I do think that's very good for the deck. And once again, like, congratulations to him because it shows that Branded, as long as you have a good pilot behind it, it's going to be a great deck in any format. You just have to be careful for your bad matchups and be prepared for them, and have your deck tech for the format and just not misplay. So it's one of those things where Branded's a tough deck to play this format, but you can definitely still find success, and you love to see it. And I hope that more people consider this deck for their events because I think it's still great, and you'll be able to one-shot Blue Eyes like it's your job. So yeah, with that being said, we'll be seeing you guys later. Mad Games GX signing out.